Do you want to know what the next wave in crypto is? Everybody wants to know that. Do you want to know where the big money is going to move? The Black Rocks, the sovereign wealth funds of the world. I bet you it's not where you think it is. Do you want to learn about projects that are creating real world impact and actually improving people's lives in the real world? So that is what we're going to learn about today. If the answer to those questions is yes, stay with us. We're going to show you a project that's servicing exactly those needs and help you understand that better. So my name is Sim. In this video, we're going to go through looking at what is the concept of value and how does blockchain serve that concept of value compared to money and fiat. Then we're going to look at how blockchain is changing agriculture and impacting the real world in a way that's very valuable, no matter who you are in the world. Then we're going to look at a project called Farmsent, and we're going to give you the details on that because that is a brand new project that just launched that I am the advisor of, that I think is going to be one of the biggest projects in the coming wave of projects in the next bull run. So let's get started on that. So first of all, when I ask you, what does value mean to you? What comes to mind? See, a lot of times we think of value as money, and money is very valuable. But why is money valuable? When you really think about it, what we value is when our life gets improved, right? So if you go out and improve somebody's life so much that they're willing to pay you in the form of money, you effectively showed value or gave value to their life, so they gave you value back in the form of money, which they earned by going out and improving somebody else's life and adding value to their life. So in reality, money is just a storage mechanism of value, right? But the value is actual real world value, right? It's value in the real world of making somebody's life better. So let's just get some real examples, right? We value houses because they allow our families to live. We value food because that's kind of the point. We value community, we value connection, we value a lot of things in the real world, and money is a form of getting that value, right? So that's why money is actually a storage mechanism of value, but the real value is in these things that actually improve people's lives. And that's where this project Farmsent becomes very valuable because it is allowing people from across the world to be able to access food in places where they don't have it, and where they have too much food, it's allowing those places to access the demand that's on the other side of the world. But just keeping that concept of value in mind is going to be very powerful going forward. And even in crypto itself, right? I've said it many times, but I'll say it again, that when you are analyzing a project, you need to think about what does it do? Is the thing that it does so valuable for somebody's actual life that they would pay for that improvement in their life? And where's the money coming from? Is the money coming from somebody's life being improved, in which case it's valuable? Or is the money coming from some magic yield mechanism which doesn't actually do anything for somebody's life, which means it's a scam? So even in this way of thinking about technology improving people's value, right? When you look back and you think about how Google improved people's lives, Google brought knowledge to us for free. That was so valuable that we paid Google trillions of dollars. Facebook brought connection to people, improved people's lives, so they got trillions of dollars. Now blockchain is being implemented in the real world for that value to be added to people's lives. So let's look at those. What are the value models in the blockchain real world asset space? Okay. Real world assets are the things that we actually have in the real world, right? Mines, houses, farms, cars. These are real world assets that actually do something for people's lives. Going forward, blockchain is going to be used to represent those real world assets in the digital space. So that's what tokenization is, where we're taking real estate, we're turning it into tokens and making it so people can invest in it from across the world. That's tokenized real estate. You probably heard that in a previous project, we've helped tokenize mines, which means gold, iron, copper, nickel mines. We've turned into a token that allows people to invest into that as a business model. And that's the tokenization of mines. What we're discussing today is the tokenization of the farming and commodity supply chain, right? And commodities are just real world things, but let's look at tokenizing the food commodity supply chain, because it's very valuable to have food delivered from one place to another, and to turn it into a token improves the process a lot. And we're going to give you a full detailed description of that. But this idea of real world assets being tokenized is one of the next waves of crypto, right? Because crypto has these hype cycles. At one point it was ICOs, and then it crashed. Then it was DeFi and metaverse, and then we had a crash. The next wave that we see, one of the next waves we see coming in crypto, is the real world asset tokenization wave. And actually, most of the wealth in the world is sitting in real world assets. It's sitting in real estate. It's sitting in farms. It's sitting in mines. And that amount of wealth being brought onto the blockchain and tokenized is going to be one of the biggest opportunities we have in the world. And that's at the forefront right now. And big money is focused on that. That's why we haven't had the BlackRocks and the sovereign wealth funds enter the token space, because they have investors. They have very serious investors that are backing them. But those investors do not want to buy XYZ shitcoin that makes a bunch of money. It's not about making money. It's about the risk that you take when you put that amount of money into something that doesn't actually do anything for somebody's life. So big money is looking at tokenized farms, tokenized commodities, tokenized supply chains, tokenized real world assets as the investment vehicle. And when you tokenize something, it becomes regulated. So that regulation allows the big money to actually invest into a regulated space. So that's one of the secrets going forward. But one of the biggest areas of investment in the real world asset space is commodities. You see, when the world gets to this stage where we're at now, where money printing goes through the roof, that printed money chases real world wealth. And a lot of that is chasing commodities, right? It's chasing gold, iron, nickel, farms, food, houses, real world things that are actually wealth rather than just numbers on a screen wealth. So commodities are at the core of how the world works, because everything you see in this room around us is commodities. Everything we eat is commodities. Most of the time when the world is in that state that we've been in the last 20 years, where it's technology or it's made up financial products that are actually gaining most of the monetary value in the world, commodities get ignored because the world just runs and food prices are stable and everything's fine. What happens today is all of that wealth that's printed chases things like food. So the commodities go through a super cycle, which means the prices pump a lot. And you probably noticed food prices have gone up, prices of cars have gone up, houses have gone up. That process is the process of that money flooding into commodities. And that's what causes the commodity super cycle. Now, food commodities are at the core of how society works, right? Because if food is reaching tables, society is stable. If food prices are stable, society is stable. When food prices start to rise, people start to get more stressed because they can't feed their kids. When food prices get unaffordable, societies melt down. People go in the streets, people riot. So the stability of societies is connected to the stability of the food that's coming in, right? Today, we're watching different countries go through the meltdown stage where they are having issues with food security, right? Ukraine had the war, so Ukraine stopped shipping wheat. That meant more demand for wheat went to India. So India stopped shipping wheat. As a preemptive measure, India then stopped shipping rice recently, which used to go to Saudi. Now Saudi stopped shipping rice. So different countries are protecting their food supply as a food security measure because they want to feed their people to make sure their country runs properly. And this is a huge issue that's happening across the world. There are 69 countries ready to go bankrupt and collapse within the next 2 years. And that process is what kicks off a lot of the chaos that happens during these times. So food security is very important in keeping countries stable. Now, at the same time, the people who produce the food, the farmers, they don't even get compensated fairly enough. They don't even get enough money for their produce to fund the next harvest. So on one side, countries across the world are having problems sourcing food. On the other side, farmers don't even have the capacity to produce more food because they don't have the money. And in the middle, there's a bunch of middlemen and companies that take all of the money. And that makes the supply chain complicated, inefficient, which leads to problems on both sides. Okay? That is the world that we're looking at when it comes to commodities. Now, this is where Farmsent comes in. See, Farmsent is a business that has been running for 5 years, and it used to be called Beanboat. Okay, it was running out of Colombia, and they were picking up coffee from Colombia and shipping it to places where coffee is in high demand and sells for a much higher price. And on average, they were compensating back to the farmer 25% more than the market price, which the farmers loved because now the farmer can feed themselves, they can feed their kids, they can have a stable life, and then they can keep producing coffee and potentially produce more coffee because now they have the money to be able to fund their harvest. Now, Beanboat has merged with Farmsent. So today it's called Farmsent. But Farmsent has moved into the Web3 space. Okay, so here's how Farmsent is solving that issue. In simple terms, Farmsent is an app. In this app, farmers can put their supply into the app. They can list what they have available to sell. On the other side, in the MENA region, the Middle East, North Africa region, where they have much less food production and they have a high demand for food, the buyers from that side can join the app and make purchases of this food. It's very simple. It's the same commodity supply chain that's been running before. This app connects together all the different supply that we have in the world with all the different buyers who are willing to join in the world and makes it seamless for anybody to be able to source supply from wherever they'd like, or they could connect with demand. Farmers can connect with demand, buyers can connect with supply, simplifying that process. The real magic happens when the Farms token gets involved. So Farmsent has a token called Farms, F-A-R-M-S. That token allows any country to buy food commodities from any other country. But instead of that money going through a bank and then another bank and with a bunch of fees and then taking 5 days to be transferred to another bank in the country, more fees, and then 5 days later, the money reaching the farmer with all these fees deducted, the Farmsent token makes it so that you can take a currency, convert it into Farmsent token, Farms token. The value flows to the buyer's or the seller's country. It instantly gets converted into their local currency and it goes into their bank account. So that transaction takes like 5 seconds instead of 5 days, which means more commerce can happen, more business can occur, and that allows the inefficiency of all the banks being involved and all the fees being involved taken away. Now, countries are also very interested in moving away from the US dollar to trade, right? The Middle East countries, they're scared that the US dollar is not the best means of global commerce anymore. So they're looking for alternate mechanisms to be able to do that trade itself. So the Farms token becomes that trade mechanism where the value can flow seamlessly within 5 seconds without it having to be tied to the US dollar, right? Those two things combined together means that effectively the Farms token is tokenizing the commodity supply chain. The same old inefficient supply chain that we've had is being made more efficient through the app. You can access more farmers. The farmers can access more demand, and everybody can transact between themselves without getting too many other parties involved and making the whole process inefficient. Now, the other thing that's happening is farmers, for example, here in Indonesia, they don't know who they can sell to. So the only option they have is a local buyer, and the local buyer is a middleman. So they will make sure they give the farmer the lowest price. That middleman will then sell it to a warehouse who gives that middleman the lowest price they can. That warehouse sells it to another middleman. That middleman sells it to a factory. The factory processes the stuff and sells it overseas. So everybody along the way is making profits, and the least amount of profits are reaching farmers. Now, if a farmer can sign up and they can directly see that in Dubai, their goods are selling for 2 times the price, they can directly sell it to Dubai. And Farmsent will be the commodity supply chain that picks it up, puts it on trucks, puts it on ships, sends it forward, has insurance built in, has all of those services which the farmer doesn't know how to access, takes care of all the legal contracts and everything. Now, the farmer can actually get more money so they can then increase their harvest, or they can dig a well to be able to get more water so they can increase their harvest, or just be able to feed their kids so their kids can go to school and their kids can actually live a good life, so when they grow up they can actually take care of the earth, right? So there's so many knock-on benefits of this process playing out like this. So that's just an introduction to Farmsent itself. So the farmers' problems we just looked at, right? The farmers can access global markets, they can make more money, and they get a fairer compensation. Another problem that happens with farmers is their production happens in seasons. So when production, let's say rice, there's the rice season. When the rice season occurs, the prices of rice fall so low that the farmer, it almost becomes unprofitable for them to harvest the rice. Whereas if they can access global markets, they know that there's a demand that's at a good price. That means they will stay profitable when they actually harvest the rice. So they can keep harvesting the rice. Otherwise, you would be surprised how much food supply just rots on the trees because the farmers can't make money from harvesting it. So there's food rotting on the trees when there's countries that need food. And solving that problem allows so much more abundance to actually come out of our farms, right? Now, the problem for wholesalers on the buying side is that when they set up a commodity supply chain, it's very complicated. They have to talk to humans, they have to connect to companies, they have to build the relationship, they have to do paperwork, they have to get licenses, they have to do all the complexity just to be able to get one set of supply or one seller online to be able to ship to them. In today's world, they do all of that, and then a country decides that they're no longer going to ship rice. Now that whole supply chain shuts down. Now they have to do the work again and again, and it's inefficient for them to be able to do this, which they raise their prices to do this work, which leads to higher prices for food for the people who are buying it. With Farmsent, we have so many different suppliers that are available in the app that if one shuts down, you can automatically switch to another one. If India is not shipping rice, you know there's Indonesia shipping rice. If Indonesia is not shipping coffee, you know Colombia is shipping coffee. And we're going to bring on more and more countries online into this process. So as a wholesaler, you'll be able to just access whichever good you need. And if you can't find it here, you can find it here, and all the complexity gets taken care of, which is a huge value add for them. Now, if the wholesalers get better prices and more stable prices and stable quality, then the consumers get more stable prices, stable quality. So people can feed their families at a better price with better quality food and know that there's not going to be these crazy fluctuations. That stabilizes the country itself, because if people can feed their kids at stable prices and can have stability in their lives, then the society itself stays stable. And as long as that stays stable, we don't go into the meltdown stage that places like Sri Lanka, Venezuela, Syria, Lebanon, all these kind of meltdowns of countries don't happen. And that's all coming out of consumers being able to get the right prices. Now, you'd be also surprised how many problems impact investors have, because there's so many people out there that want to put their money to work doing something good for the world. They don't just want to put it into the next financial product and make the bankers rich and they get rich alongside. They want to do something good with their money. And especially in the blockchain space, it's so hard to find things that are actually improving people's lives. And Farmsent, I can proudly say, is one of those projects that's actually improving the farmer's life, that's actually improving the stability of countries, that's actually feeding kids in the places that the food is being sent to, and is actually improving the lives of everybody who's involved along the way. And the impact investors can make a healthy return from this whole process. Okay. So the way that happens is, like we already discussed, the Farmsent app connects together the global demand with the global supply. Simple. Hopefully that makes sense by now. That helps farmers be able to increase their food production and stay profitable, which means 40 years down the road, we will have farmers. Because today, nobody wants to be a farmer anymore, which means in 40 years, all of our old farmers who are not going to be able to farm anymore leave the farm fields and our food production falls off of a cliff. Now, the farmer can feed their kids better. The farmer can send their kids to school better. And when the kids go to school, they learn about how they can actually improve the world. And when they grow up, they're the ones who make sure they don't dump plastic into the oceans. They're the ones who come up with the solutions for the world to be improved from the condition that it's in today. That's a huge net benefit to the world itself. This stabilization of food prices means that every country that we've spoken to is very interested in participating in this process because they see how this all works. The farms token allows the velocity of capital to speed up, right? So this is an example I always give. You see, if you have $10 trillion and it can move once in a week, then you can do $10 trillion of business. But if you have $1 and it can move 100 trillion times a week, then you can do $100 trillion of business. So it's not just how much money we have to work with, it's how quickly it can move back and forth and how much value can be created in people's lives with it that matters. So one of my favorite ways that we're actually improving the world when it comes to Farmsent is that some of that liquidity, some of that value that goes into the token is going to be used to help develop the infrastructure in the countries themselves for the farmers. So for example, in Colombia, climate change has made it so that the roads get rained on a lot more, which means they can't get their goods out to the market efficiently. They have to put it on horses and send it, which means they're not globally competitive, which means farmers don't get enough money. When we compensate the farmers fairly, they can go out and build the roads, help build the roads. We're going to be working with governments to help the governments build the roads. Here in Indonesia, soon as we started talking to the government about this process, and they knew we were going to come out to a certain place, they went and built the roads already to make it so that it looks good when we actually show it to the world. So when we went out and we asked the farmer, how has this improved your life? Is it that we helped you plant more? Is it that we're helping you access all this stuff? They said, no, the most impactful thing is that because of you, the road got built. So now my kids can go to school easier. It's all the same. It's just helping our own families, right? But even beyond that, the technology itself, the token technology itself is adding so much value to people's lives, right? When we spoke to the Polygon founders about this, they instantly got excited because they realized that we're bringing blockchain to the average person. The app makes it simple for the farmers who don't know anything about blockchain to use this system because they just want to be able to access markets. We have Polytrade providing insurance services on the process. So it again speeds up the velocity of capital and it also provides more security for the whole process. But even beyond that, the blockchain itself allows us to then track where the food is produced and where it ends up. How long did it take along the journey? Somebody who's buying can have complete transparency about where was their food produced, how long did it sit in which airport or which shipping port, when did it arrive to them, and they can verify that whole process, which gives them the security of knowing where they're sourcing and the quality of food that they're actually getting. The velocity of capital going up, makes the whole thing work faster. So more value can be added to people's lives. That one's a simple one. The app bringing the Farmsent token and farm system to the farmers, I don't think you understand how big of an impact that is. Because today, blockchain exists in this cocooned world. The techies know how to use it. The real world people don't even understand how it's valuable. How is it valuable for me to hold something called Bitcoin? I don't know where it is. I don't know what it does. What am I supposed to do with it? Now, farmers can actually use that system without even knowing that they're using blockchain. But that efficiency increase adds value to their life, but they don't have to click wallets and all the minutia and complicated stuff. So the average person can now finally start to use these things to improve their actual life. That's a huge, huge value add. So that's the technology, right? But let's look at why is it better than the existing system, right? Why is it that this is more efficient and how does this make more money than the existing system? Great question, Sim. First of all, this process cuts out a bunch of middlemen, right? It's not cutting out the person who's actually efficiently running the supply chain. We're still going to need those people, but it's taking out all those banks that just take fees for doing nothing. It's taking out the 5-6 middlemen that sit in between the farmer and the end buyer who just want their cut and they move commodities back and forth, taking days and weeks and making the whole process inefficient. It gets rid of them. It makes it so that anybody who is not actually adding value to the supply chain is no longer able to participate in it. You have to figure out the way to get the commodities to the end buyer in the most efficient way possible. Otherwise, you're inefficient in the process. Okay, that's a huge one. Now, the other thing is when somebody buys a commodity in their country, their currency gets converted into the farm's token. 10% of that value stays in the farm's token. So let's say somebody buys $1 million of something, $1 million of rice. 100,000 of that stays in the farm's token. 900,000 of that flows down and buys the commodities and sends it forward. And because there's such a spread between the price that you can buy in one place and the price that places like the Middle East buy it for, there's such a difference in those that 10% is an easily deductible margin and there's still a healthy profit left over. That 10% going to the token itself means the price of the tokens supported, right? So when you're looking at most of the cryptos today and you ask them, where's the money coming from? It's coming from other investors. It's just one person puts in the money, somebody else takes it. That's why 95% of people lose money and 5% of people make money in crypto, because it's just a game of taking money from each other. In this way, where's the money coming from? From a buyer who knows that they can buy a commodity for a cheaper price somewhere else. So it's improving their life. So when they put the money in, 10% of that money stays in the token. So if you're a token holder, your token will increase in value, most likely. Again, there's no guarantee of this. This is not financial advice. I'm just giving you education on this whole process. But that liquidity flowing into the token is a huge value model. And then when we take some of that liquidity and we improve the roads, improve the factories, improve the infrastructure, and increase the capacity for those areas to be able to produce, then that increases how much food is able to go through the system, which increases how much money goes into the token. And it's a value loop. And on all sides, we're feeding people. And I've always said my key performance indicator, my KPI, is children fed. That's it. And not fed through charity or giving money to people. Children fed through helping their parents be able to sustain themselves and take care of themselves and feed their own kids, by empowering people to be able to take care of themselves, not by making them dependent on handouts. Okay, and this is how we're actually achieving this whole process. At the same time as we're making the supply chain more efficient, the world is going through chaos. When that happens, food costs go up in all the countries because of what you're seeing already happen. So as the food costs go up, this system becomes even more economically viable. It becomes even more economically efficient. Not efficient, it becomes more economically viable, right? Because now food prices keep going up, and the more you can connect the supply together, the more value will go into that system. That one hopefully makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense to me. And the other thing with this token compared to everything else is that this is backed by real world value, right? This isn't some computer sitting somewhere that are supposed to be valuable in the future. This is actual food being taken from actual people and delivered to actual tables, which is valuable to them, which puts the value into this system. So this commodity supply chain tokenization part of it is the real world asset part of it that makes it very valuable and economically viable. So hopefully that made sense. And we're going to go through a lot of this stuff in detail. I just want to give you an overview that the world is going through a shift where money is moving from fugazi, fiat, made up printed money to real world valuable stuff like food. And if you want to catch the next wave of real world value being brought onto the blockchain, projects like Farmsent are going to be at the forefront of that. That investing into something that actually feeds people, actually feeds the farmers and their kids, actually feeds people who need food in countries where they have a food security problem, is a good way to invest in a way that improves people's lives. And the secret to blockchain is that it's a system that automates so many steps along the way. It's a bunch of computers we connected together, in simple terms. How we're using the computers is that they automate a lot of the processes that people use to run real world stuff. And that is where the secret of blockchain lies. And the biggest players in the world realize that that's what it's built for. So as these value models get created, they're going to move their money from the sovereign wealth funds and the asset managers into models like this, because you get the benefit of blockchain, you get the benefit of more efficiently adding value to people's lives, and you get the benefit of real world assets backing it. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So now, what should you do? I don't know what you should do. You decide what you should do. This is just my education, right? But if I was in this situation, I would actually learn more about it. Please don't just listen to me. This is not financial advice. Don't just run out and buy this token because I'm telling you. Okay, go do your own research on all of this stuff. Go listen to BlackRock CEO saying that tokenized securities and tokenized real world assets are the future of investing. Look at how banks are transitioning to this process. Look at the demand for commodities going up into the commodity supercycle. Make your own analysis of how the world works and then understand where this fits in. But all of that comes out of learning these things. Learn how this whole system works. If you want to learn more about Farmsent, go to farmsent.io and learn about it yourself. Okay, figure out if this is a good way for you to participate in the future of the world. And if you'd like, there's actually an investing button there, if you so choose that it's part of your investment portfolio. And we'll do a tutorial on how to do all of this stuff going forward. If you're like, look, I'm not the type of person to go out and just buy some tokens. I get this makes sense, but the token thing just is confusing to me. We need hundreds of thousands of people from across the world to be part of the supply chain, right? If you're somebody who has expertise in a country in export or in import, speak to us, because we would love to connect with you and bring you into this system so we can show you how it works. You could be a farmer. You could be a commodity supplier. You could have a trucking company, a shipping company, import, export, anywhere you're involved in the process, your help is going to be needed in bringing this to fruition, especially in the area that you are. And you'll benefit from that process of being able to access global markets. If you're somebody who loves helping people and managing communities, if you're somebody who loves working with technology and you have skill sets that you'd like to deploy, marketing, finances, there's a million different skill sets that if you have those skill sets, we need team members. We need actual team members on the Farmsent team to help bring this vision to reality. Reach out to us like that. If you're somebody who has a network of impact investors and your impact investors are looking for places to be able to invest in a way that improves the world, reach out to us. Or if you have a network that can just get the word out there, reach out to us. There's a million different ways to participate in this process. The only thing I wouldn't do if I was in your shoes is do nothing, because it's easy to look at the world and think, yeah, things are going to shit. Yeah, there's a lot of chaos going on in the world. You can have a negative viewpoint on everything that's going on and then go, well, I can't do anything about that, and then go back to sleep. In reality, there's a new, brighter world being formed. There's a newer, better world being built through these technologies. And they are creating the possibility for us to change the way the old things are being done. And in the future, these systems will be used to be able to create newer, better ways of doing things. And you can be part of that in whichever way that is. Even just getting this out to people and sharing it and getting the message out in and of itself is a help that you can provide in this process. Otherwise, all I know is we're building a better world. We're building better ways to feed people's kids, because those are my kids. I got a little too serious, but I'm serious. I'm so serious that I'm not serious, but I'm serious. That if we want to do something about this whole problem, it has to be done by us. So hopefully that made sense. Thank you for sticking it out this far. I don't care if you like and subscribe. I just care that you watch this far. I really appreciate you doing that, and we'll get in touch with you again. Much love.